Howdy y'all, Chip here. I am notoriously good at wasting time. I'm not sure if that's how people perceive me, but I sure as hell feel it. Sitting out on the porch with a cold beer and just listening to the birds chirping as I appreciate a good sunset. Walking through my neighborhood under the handful of stars the city lights will allow me to see. And revisiting media I've already experienced, sometimes immediately after the first completion. I go back and forth on whether I actually think any of this stuff is wasted time, but it sure is time well spent in my books. The algorithms of today will convince you and me that every second that isn't optimized into purchasing the next thing to improve your life, growing a business, or consuming every book, movie, or video game ever created, while also keeping up with every new release, is the worst folly a person can partake in. I know I've fallen into that trap quite a few times, and I have to be very intentional with keeping myself from falling prey to it again. Back in November of last year, I deleted all social media accounts, aside from this YouTube channel, in an attempt to combat my exposure to these predatory algorithms. I recognize these algorithms are just math, but it's math equations that are highly incentivized by the extremes, and constant exposure to extremes is not what we as people were designed for. So why am I on this little soapbox here? Well, as luck would have it, I got to read a manga. I loved this manga. I was sad that it was over. It was the perfect length for the story that it told. It didn't overstay its welcome, but it was long enough to allow the moments to steep into me. When I finished the manga, just like with most pieces of media I greatly enjoy, I felt quite melancholic and just wanted to start rereading it just to enjoy it for that little bit longer. I read through it pretty quickly, so a part of me was trying to justify why this would be a good use of my time so I could better internalize the story beats and the characters. But I knew I was just making excuses to waste time rereading a story I had already read rather than picking up something new. But why do I need to make an excuse to reread something? Why can't I just waste time? If I enjoy the time I'm spending, it's my time to waste, damn it. It sure as hell beats mindlessly scrolling through TikTok, so why do I feel so guilty that I resort to making excuses for myself just to do what I want? It's not like this is the first time I've done this. I've reread The Hobbit like 10 times. I've read through the Dragon Ball Z manga at least 5. I've played all the way through A Short Hike 3 times. I've 100%ed Super Mario Sunshine, Galaxy, and Galaxy 2 4 separate times, while also beating The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker at least 3 times with my next door neighbor over a few years. I mean, hell, how many times have I rewatched Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann just to feel something? But every time I've done a reread, a rewatch, or boot up a game for the 3rd time, I also have to wrestle with the idea of, is this a good use of my time, or should I pick something that's new to me? A little side anecdote. I remember I was dating this girl like 10 years ago, and we were talking about books. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to read, and I landed on wanting to reread The Inheritance Cycle, as it had been a few years, and I didn't really remember that much from it. She just kind of laughed at me, and even suggested that rereading a series I'd already read when there's so many new ones I could be reading is such a profound waste of time. I think she even pointed out how much time I'd already wasted with all my rereads of The Hobbit. It wasn't a good relationship. Why is it that this is such a prevalent thought amongst us all? We can scramble to finish as many books, shows, movies, games, whatever it is, just to never even keep up with how rapidly everything releases, let alone the insane idea of consuming everything that's ever been created. It's an impossible thought, but for whatever reason we seem to keep believing it could be done. And then we tell ourselves, hey, maybe at least if we cut out all the fluff and just aim to consume only the good stuff, then it's going to be possible. Why would we waste our time with all the bad or even just mid stuff when we should just be consuming the classics, the all-time bangers? Except even that's an outlandishly impossible goal. It can't be done. So what can we do instead? There's this idea I'm seeing circling around other YouTube channels whom are primarily focused on slowing down and going back to older tech or ways of living. Spending less time on a phone or streaming services, more time with physical media, and just being present in the moment. The idea is that our media should not be an endless stream of content which we're drinking from like a fire hose, just hoping to catch as much at every given moment, but rather to have a carefully curated library which means something to us. Having a bookshelf of the books that you enjoy, adding a few new ones to occasionally be read and potentially add to the collection. Having the games you love or will actually play soon on your shelf or Steam library. And having the DVDs you love, and maybe even making a Plex server with the movies you want to access at all times. Having a collection of media that shaped you into who you are and slowly adding to it as you experience new bangers. I think this all allows for the guilt-free re-experiencing of media. If you accept you will only ever get to see so many movies, read so many books, and play so many games, you can balance getting to new experiences that you're itching to try while also giving yourself the grace to go back and re-experience the art which meant so much to you at one point in time. In a world that seems hell-bent on moving faster and faster, I think it's important to take the time to stay vigilant in slowing down and trying to decide what is truly important to us, rather than what other people tell us is important. There's nothing inherently wrong with getting inspired by a YouTube short to get into a new hobby or go buy a new watch or something because your algorithm keeps showing it to you. But do it because you took the time to really think about if that hobby or item is something you genuinely want rather than you're buying into the hype of the video feed. If things ever start to feel overwhelming, go back to your comfort pieces and give yourself the grace to relive that moment of your life, even if just to be away from the noise for a little bit. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer to all this. I don't think completely shunning the modern world and escaping to the wilderness to read books and raise chickens is the answer, although I volunteer as tribute to find out. But I also don't think just mindlessly putting our heads down and going with the motions of the current era is correct either. We all need a balance of the past and the current to have it all just kind of make sense. For some, that might look like a 90-10 split on old versus new, while for others, it might be the inverse. Realistically, for most people, it's going to be somewhere in between that, weighted to one side or the other, or maybe even just a 50-50 split. And I would wager that the ratio is not going to stay stationary, and it's going to shift as you experiment and get older. For me, I know I'm going through phases. Right now, for gaming, I'm exclusively playing games that are new to me, although I think only one of the games I'm playing right now is a new release. But my manga consumption is all consumed by a reread right now. As far as books are concerned, I'm currently reading 2 books at the same time. One of the 2 books is The Brothers Karamazov, which I've had on my to-read list for a few years, but I've never gotten around to. And the other book is The Return of the King, which this is going to be my second time completing. Actually, this might be a little bit jarring, but I have a little bit of an anecdote for adding on to the slowing down of life. Please indulge me. I used to wear an Apple Watch. I got it really late into all the hype of having Apple Watches. It was like 2020 when I finally bought one. I bought it because I liked the idea of not needing to constantly pull my phone out of my pocket to see messages or who's calling me. I loved the idea of not needing to take my phone with me on runs to listen to music. Now, 5 years later, that watch is only used as an alarm so my wife can keep sleeping while I get up. I currently wear a Casio F91W on my wrist and I run without any music. I deleted my social media accounts and removed most apps from my phone such that it's now just a calling, texting, email machine. I've chosen to remove the sources of constant distraction of my life and I feel I'm better for it. However, I have some friends who genuinely feel the Apple Watch actually keeps them from using their phone. The annoyance of having notifications on their wrists all the time is completely overshadowed by the reduction in the use of their phones since now it just stays put away. They use social media less because their phone is in their hands less. And they don't feel they need to jump to the extreme of deleting everything and they just practice using stuff in moderation. Everyone's gonna have a different need and a different solution for that need, and I think that's really cool. I think what I'm really enjoying the most about this mini renaissance of bringing back older tech and media is people are starting to express themselves again rather than just everyone having the latest smartphone and smartwatch. I'm starting to see people play Game Boy Advances in public again. I'm seeing more paperback books out in the open. I'm seeing flip phones and cheap watches, and I think it's great that it feels like people are starting to really take the time to decide what modern conveniences they're actually wanting in their lives and which one they're okay forgoing. I know there's some people talking down on this as just another consumerism trend where people are just buying a bunch of stuff to posture themselves in public or online. And while I'm sure there's plenty of that, I do think there is some earnestness to it as opposed to people buying a Supreme t-shirt or an iPhone 17 Pro Max. Only time will tell. Cultivating the media and tech we have in our lives is more critical than it's ever been before. Our attention is constantly being vied for by giant conglomerates whose only interest in us is how much money they can wrangle from us. Like I said earlier in the video, there's nothing inherently wrong with spending your money. If there's a game, a movie, a book, a hobby, etc., and it interests you, by all means go for it. But don't get swept away in the excitement of the new shiny thing that gets dangled in front of you every 15 seconds. We can all do well by slowing down, looking at what truly brings us joy, and building a collection of these experiences around ourselves, and being a bit more selective about what new we bring in. Anyway, I think that's all for this week. This feeling I have is very much in flux, and I'd love to hear your take on it down in the comments below. I think it's a little too easy to just go full doomer about the current era media and tech, but I honestly don't think it's all bad. I could see a statement that exclusively looking to the past is just as bad. Anywho, if you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. It's always great seeing new folks joining in the discussions. Like the video if you liked it, ignore all buttons if you didn't. And until next time, keep it tuned in.